Well, I want to comment on this Syrian girl, and I know this is not going to be popular, what I say, because I know in the media, in the alternative media, which is basically hosted a lot by YouTube, there's a very popular undercurrent against the elite in the United States, against, most powerful Jewish elements and that type of stuff. But to tell you the truth, I support the elite in the United States, and I support the Jews. That's the way I think. I don't like to blatantly support the Jews. Yes, I think it's good that Jews be criticized, to keep them honest, because Jews are human and all this type of stuff. I mean, they make mistakes. I mean, really, come on. You don't have to just bow down and tell them everything they want to hear. But so legitimate criticism is actually very much welcome. But I support the Jews. Not blindly support them, but when it really comes down to it, I don't want them getting persecuted. Damn it, I support them all the way. But criticism is welcome. Okay. Now, a little bit about this Syrian girl. I seen this a while back, and I don't follow her too much on stuff. I know she's very good looking. She looks like she's probably a model and stuff. And a lot of the attraction of her is her looks. She's not stupid. She says things. And supposedly she came from a higher up ruling family in Syria that was basically ousted from the government in Syria. And she comments with Alex Jones and Morris. Morris, I forgot what the hell that was, on here on YouTube and stuff. But I think the whole thing is a big charade. What's really happening in Syria with Syrian girl, and she talks and, so she's over here. I had her eyes closed on a picture, but there's Alex Jones and Syrian girl, and they're talking, and she's not really giving you the straight scoop. This is one person. And this is basically an actress, and this whole thing is a show charade. I mean, you're not really getting the full straight scoop. And I'm going to say something else that's extremely unpopular on this, but do not always think, I know, our elite are very shrewd. They have policies. They want to overthrow governments, and they have other policies they have in the Middle East. I don't always blindly support everything our elite do, especially in the field of medicine and free energy from agriculture, like industrial hemp and that type of stuff. But I do support them. And you have to remember, a lot of these regimes are getting overthrown, like Assad. I mean, I wasn't really keen on them overthrowing a regime in Libya. That. I thought Gaddafi was one of the least extreme of anybody over there, but of course he had to go with the gold standard and screw it up for himself. That's really what happened there. But Assad is an evil guy, and if they overthrow the Saudi family, they overthrow the regime in Iran, it's fine by me. She's acting like she's exposing something, but we all know the deal, and this is not going to be something popular with anybody, I don't think, But I'm going to tell you the truth that a lot of times, even Italian mafia, at least from what I know, work very closely with the Jews in Mossad, and I consider brothers. They're like brothers. And, I would back up a rabbi and a Jew anytime. That's just how I am. But I don't see them the way a lot of people are getting. I know I've seen practically every video that David Duke put out and everything like that. I know some of that criticism is legitimate, but you could take any person or any group of people, and if you only emphasize one thing, even if it's facts, you're going to make that person look like the worst person there is, or that people look like the worst group of people there is. It depends on what you emphasize and what you leave out. So in their defense, I can definitely tell you Jews do a hell of a lot of good in this world, so I do support them. And the one thing I'm going to say this, people sometimes, and this is where this overreaction stuff gets it out of hand. I don't know, Jews do this too, because they have such a history of being persecuted by various peoples throughout the ages, and sometimes they certain people in the group bring it on themselves, and they bring it on everybody. Sometimes it happens not just for no reason at all, but it's in their history to get persecuted. So when people criticize too much, too deeply, or offend too much, they get defensive. So, I mean, you know, Christians who are well-meaning, which sometimes I'm wondering if they're even thinking beyond their nose, when they're trying to convert over a Jew, they're actually trying to destroy them. You know, that's not good. That's not good. It's actually an attack on the faith and actually an attack on their identity. So, you know, in Israel they have laws against that. One place they need to be preserved. So, I mean, people have to tolerate things different ways. I mean, you know, sometimes I wish, you know, be careful. You know, I don't want to say this as a criticism, but as a shrewd maneuver. I think, well, Jews are pretty shrewd and calm in life for the most part, but sometimes certain ones can overreact. And boy, that sure doesn't help their cause in a lot of ways. You know, sometimes I wish they don't do that. I mean, I can overreact too. Everybody can overreact because everybody is human. You know, and you know the problem sometimes is that Jews sometimes are, well, they have a history of being persecuted for real. Very real. You know, I mean, I don't know. Probably, who knows? Maybe there could have been a very, very shrewd way to even deal with the Nazis, to get out of there and establish Palestine and establish Israel smoothly and save a lot of life. There maybe could have been a way. That's usually my method, or my preferred, if I could be, you know, a negotiator, that works the best. Now, in some cases, when you're dealing with some of these people that are very extreme religious groups in the Middle East, you can't, I mean, I don't know, I think they're crazy sometimes. You know, so, you know, if they're going to overthrow Assad, I'm supporting that all the way. That's the policy of our elite. This Syrian girl is basically like, I don't know what she is. She's like a plant, an actress. It's not real. It's not the voice of Syria. You know, I can actually bring out people from that. I don't know them personally, but I could get them from that B'nai Faith, from the Rabbani Trust, and they could talk about different persecutions that went on in Iran against their faith. You know, these are people with zero religious tolerance. So, you know, to tell you quite the truth, I actually basically support the policies of our elite. And the elite that we see, that are old established elite in China, are actually worst. The elite that you'll see in Russia are even worse. The elite families in a lot of the Middle Eastern countries are worst. I support our elite. That's really quite honest. And I do support the Jews, but, you know, be careful in your criticism. You know, don't try to be like so harsh and so ridiculous, like you're going to be combative. You know, sometimes I even wonder how sometimes these interviewers that might actually get an interviewer with one of the Rothschild family, and they'll go, well, what, you're doing this, and then your family killed all these people way back when. Like, once they do that, they destroyed any kind of progress or any kind of suggestion they can make to this person. Like, if I ever had an opportunity to talk to a Rothschild, I would ask him about, well, what about using industrial hemp throughout the nations as a food and fuel source, and to eliminate a lot of the plastics that are being thrown out and floating around in our ocean. I would not bring up anything about their past. I mean, really, what are you trying to do? Throw a dagger in a guy's eye before you talk to him? Is that a way to negotiate? And sometimes people do that with everybody. It's bad business all the way around. So, but you know, if you start thinking about who the worst of the evils are, it's not our elite. It's not the Western elite. It's actually so many other elite in the world. And Alex Jones, I'm going to tell you quite honestly, I think he's 100% controlled opposition. I want to leave you with this. Alex Jones, I think, in my opinion, is 100% controlled opposition. He actually is working for the elite. Now, you should criticize the elite. Just don't be like, you know, ridiculous about it, where you're putting yourself in a corner where you have to, you know, you're saying it's me against you, or one of us going to survive, you know, that type of stuff. Don't be like that. And the Syrian girl, I think, does not represent Syria in any respect. She's a very good-looking woman. and that attracts a lot of attention, of course. Any good-looking woman does. And she's not stupid or anything, but it's like her opinion. It's not like the opinion of Syria, and it's not like the actual what's going on in Syria. You can actually glean a lot of information even from mainstream news, as long as you are looking at mainstream news that comes from different countries and different publications and different authors. Not saying mainstream news where it's like a little blip that comes out of like a talking media outlet. But you will actually, if you dig in deep in mainstream news, you will find out the facts on Syria if you want to. Because the mainstream does actually present all the facts. It's that they don't emphasize all the right facts. They put their spin on it. I know. But Syrian Girl, I don't think is a very good source on a lot of this stuff. And Alex Jones, I think, is major controlled opposition. So, I mean, we should be critical of our elite and that type of stuff. And, you can be critical of Israel and Jews. Just don't go overboard where it's going to be persecution. Constructive criticism is actually welcome. I think it is. But basically, when it comes down to it, I definitely will fight for a Jew to the death. I would. I'd fight to preserve them. That's not bullshit. On full auto, too. On full auto. No bullshit. So, I don't like it when people get too harsh with them. That annoys me. So, and I could see where they sometimes feel like they're threatened and they fight back and all this kind of stuff. It doesn't work out like that. Just be calm in your criticism. Don't be too hard. So, I mean, people can work together. And, if Christians want the cross, they want Christmas, it's not going to be outlawed. We have freedom of religion in the United States. I mean, it's like, that's the way it is. So just don't be combative about it. That's the thing. So I'm a pretty much easygoing person for the most part. But, I don't know. I'll get mad too. So, I mean, everybody else does. Everybody got their damn emotions and stuff. People are human, right? But to be very, I just want to point out, though, I think Alex Jones and Syrian Girl, it's a big show. And it's basically they're talking about like they're anti-establishment in the United States, anti-elite, they're exposing elite. And actually, I think it's controlled opposition. But the elite in this country really aren't that bad. They're not as bad as the elite in other countries. That's a fact. But do not criticize the elite in this country and all its policies. Just don't totally go against them. I don't think that would be smart because it's like going from one thing to something worse. And I think Alex Jones and his Syrian Girl are actually part of a controlled opposition. So they're not helping the message anyway, even if you're in the alternative media. So that's what I basically have to say. I know I'm pretty much pro elite and pro Jewish. I mean, I am pretty much, but I'll be critical too. I looked at David Duke's videos. I know there's like he does bring out facts, but he brings out only the facts that make Jews look bad. Which you could do that with any group of people. You could do that with any one person. And there's always good and bad in everything. And if you just emphasize the bad, then it makes everything else they did good. It makes them into a bad person. So like I think David Duke's messages are too one-way slanted and that type of stuff. But I don't know. He probably believes in what he says, but I don't. I disagree. So, but just like I was saying, is don't be too harsh and too critical because it doesn't help the whole situation.